Hi, this is DarkFox127 and welcome to another Skyrim Creation Kit tutorial video. In today's video I'm going to show you how to create your very own custom Inn Keeper setup. Now what this is going to include is just setting up an Inn Keeper as you usually would, but also having the option to have a custom price for your inn. So this video is going to be split up into multiple sections and it's going to be a long one, but please do bear with me, it should be pretty damn good. So let's get started. Okay, so to get started, the first thing you want to do is obviously go ahead and create yourself your very own inn. Now don't worry, I didn't put this much work into a tutorial. I went ahead and copied one of the existing inns in the game. However, I really wouldn't recommend doing that as it's going to involve duplicating cells, and you don't want to do that to cells that could potentially have important NPCs in or quest related stuff. Just create your own cell, make your inn that way. So what we want to do, we want to go ahead and make sure that our nice new inn here has a room where you can stay. So I've gone ahead and made sure I've got a bed free here. And just to make things easier, I'm going to go ahead and give this a nice reference. So let's call it DF ref bed rent, just to make sure it's easy enough to select. Additional things, you can put whatever you want in here. I would recommend that if you go ahead and put a container in for the player to store things, make sure that this is set to no respawn. So you can see this is actually called personal chest small. This is in the game, the base game. So you can go and dump one of these in. It doesn't have respawn, and in fact it kind of has some loot in, which is interesting. I would probably edit this and empty all that crap out. But once you've got that ready, that's all good. You're good to get started. So now what you need to do is just check that you've got the relevant markers. Obviously, you're going to want things like lean markers for your innkeeper, and you're going to want a main marker here where your innkeeper is going to stand. Now, in the base game, they tend to stand there for a full 24 hours, and they don't wander around, they don't go anywhere, they don't go to sleep. So it's entirely up to you if you want to stick with the vanilla game, or if you want to be a bit more creative and set things up like packages for them to sleep and such. But either way, you're going to want a marker for where they're standing behind the bar. So go ahead, do that, put that in. I've given mine a reference again, just to make things easy to select. Make sure I'm picking the right stuff. And other things you can do is place things like sweep markers down. So you've got a sweep idle marker. You can go ahead and find things like idle markers under miscellaneous and idle marker, and just empty the filter. Go down, you'll see all sorts of cool stuff, and just set them up. Now, we are going to need to set ownership, but I'll cover that again very shortly. The patrol data, you can go ahead and set this up. This is the amount of minutes that they're going to spend doing this, so I could set this to 3 so that they wander off and do something else and they don't get stuck sweeping all day. And like I said, ownership will leave. So you can go ahead, get creative, put more down if you wish, have them do more jobs rather than just stand there all day. Or you can leave this just for their assistant to do and things like that. Now, before we do anything else, we are going to need a merchant chest. So this is going to be a chest that is going to contain all of the items that they need, all the stuff that they're going to sell. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to knock all these trees out of the way. And I'm going to go world objects and container. And I'm going to type in inn. And I'm going to find one of these. Now, either one of these will really do. Now, this is the inn that I actually copied, the one in Kynesgrove. So, Braidwood Inn. So, I'm going to just go into here, double click on this. You'll see it's set to respawn, obviously, so that their stuff will come back. They're going to have plenty to sell all of the time. And they've got all sorts of stuff in here. You can go ahead, you can customize this if you want. Obviously, the first thing you want to do is just give it a unique ID. So, I'm going to call it inn chest. And you want to click OK, create a new form, and then just go back in to your own chest, and then you can start making changes. So you can change this up if you want them to have more sort of rare stuff, or less common, or more common stuff, or whatever you want them to sell. Now, I'm going to cover shortly more about what they sell in particular. But you just want a chest set up first so that you can go ahead and drag and drop this into your cell. Now, this is obviously going to want to be somewhere out of the way, out of the player's reach. Otherwise, the player could go ahead and mess up all of the merchants selling stuff and pretty much steal all of their items, and they'll have nothing to sell. So, I mean, you could, if you wanted to, you could put it in the cell somewhere, lock it up, but I wouldn't really do that. For most merchants, I would recommend just put it in the void, out of the way. Doesn't necessarily matter where. Now, just keep the camera over that because we're going to need to select that in a minute. And if you want, you can go ahead, give it a reference. So, merchant inn. There we go. And the next thing you need to do is go under character and faction. Now I'm just going to go alt click and new, and I'm going to go ahead and start creating my very own faction. So I'm going to give this a name. So Merchant Inn DF. And then I'm going to go under General and tick Can Be Owned. Then I'm going to go under Vendor. You can ignore ranks and crime. It's not important. Tick Vendor. Make sure the start hour is 0 and the end hour is 24. Now that is only if you want this merchant / innkeeper to work 24 hours a day and stick with vanilla. Now if you do want to be more creative, like I said earlier, you can of course go ahead and set this up as, say, start hour as 8 and end hour as, say, I don't know, 5 o'clock, so 17. We're on a 24-hour clock here. You could set that up if you want, but it's really going to limit the player as to when they can go in and get supplies. Sometimes you're going to want to go in and just get supplies, so it's entirely up to you. For the purpose of the tutorial, to make sure things don't break and everything runs smoothly, and he's always selling stuff, I'm going to make sure it's 0 and 24, so all the time. Now location, this can be fairly important. You can do one of two things here that I usually do. You can tick this as near self, so they're always going to be available to sell stuff no matter where they are, but they're going to be spending their time in here anyway. Or you can make sure that, let's say they do go off and have a life and they live in a home somewhere, that they can't offer you in services when they're not at work, and you could make sure that it's only in cell. So I'm going to set it to in cell and make sure I select my cell, which is DF test in. So I'm going to have that selected. So this is basically where they can sell stuff. Radius, you can keep that as 0. The vendor items list, this is where things get interesting, and we refer back to what I was on about with the container. You can go ahead and use the default, which is what I would strongly recommend, which is vendor items innkeeper. But if you want to go ahead and make changes to this, then this works off of a form list. So you can go under miscellaneous, you can go under form list, and I've already got in the filter. And you'll see here we've got vendor items innkeeper. That's what we've got selected there. And you just drag and drop keywords into here. So we've got vendor item food raw, vendor item food. Should have keywords here somewhere. There we go, keywords. So if you go vendor item, you'll see you've got a list of all the different vendor items. So anything that you place into here, they can sell. So if you want them to actually sell poisons or anything dodgy like that, you just drag and drop that in. Make sure that you create your own vendor form list, and then you'll change it in there. But like I said, I'm going to keep mine as default, so that's perfectly fine. Don't tick that box. Don't tick any conditions unless you want further conditions, but there's no need to really mess with that stuff. And now this is why we needed a merchant container. We're going to go ahead, select reference in the render window, double click on that, and then we're good to go there. So I'm going to tick that faction off. The next thing we need to do is go ahead and create our innkeeper. So I'm just going to put DF in that filter, so I'm going to be able to find him easily again after. So go under actors, go under actor, and then alt click and new. Give that a few seconds to load, can be a pain. And I am going to call him Barney Blue. So DF actor Barney Blue. Give me his actual name. If ever there's a quest related to him, it's going to be in short Barney. I'm going to set him to essential and unique so he can't be murdered, and he's the only one of his kind. And then before I do anything else, I'm just going to click OK. Now the reason I'm doing that is just to confirm a few things and make sure that tick boxes don't get wiped and changed when I go into different tabs. So I've got DF in there. I'm just going to make my way back down, find Barney Blue, and reopen him up. Should make more options available as well. So under traits, I'm going to give him a race. So it's just going to be Nordic race. And then the voice type, this is where things can get a little more interesting. Now, in this tutorial, later on in the tutorial, I'm going to show you how to use your custom voice. And I'm also going to show you how to use the default voices, but change the system somewhat and have different things that you want them to say. Now, what I would say here is if you are looking to use the vanilla voice in any way, so if you're going to be just using the default system, no custom price, then you're going to need a specific voice type. And if you're planning to use a custom system but stick with vanilla voices only, then again, you're going to need a specific voice type. Now, there are very few voice types in the game that actually support this system. So if you don't select a voice type that is compatible with the system, then they're not going to say anything and it's not going to work very well. So what you want to do is in the filter, Actually, just put voice is probably the better thing. Put voice in the filter, go under MISC, go under form list, and you should find that in here we have a list of the voices somewhere. So it should have something Innkeeper related. So here we go, voices, town, Innkeeper. These are the 4 compatible voices in the vanilla game with the Innkeeper dialogue. Now with the DLCs, I haven't checked, I'm not entirely sure, but there may be a couple more added in. But for at least vanilla, go into here, you'll see that there are these 4. So what I'm going to do is pick male, commoner, accented. So I know that works with it. So there we go, there's male, commoner. Let's have accented. Disposition, I always put it high at about 80. I don't know why, because I don't think this actually changes anything. But, you know, it's just a thing I do. So I'm going under stats now. I'm just going to set this to 5 or something quite low. Auto calculate. This doesn't really matter too much. I'm going to type in vendor. I'm just going to select pawnbroker. If you really want, you can probably gear this guy up and have him like a level 50 kind of owns glass armor or whatever you want, but it's not really any need. The factions, this is where things get interesting. The first thing I like to do with factions is just get where they live sorted out. So let's say, for example, this is going to be based in Whiterun somewhere. This guy is going to be part of the Whiterun faction. So I'm just going to go new. And Whiterun to start with, if I can type right. So if we go down, we've got Crime Faction Whiterun and Town Faction. So I'm just going to add the Town Faction first. So he's part of the town, and anyone in the town should kind of help aid him if he's under attack or anything like that. He's just going to be friendly with people, basically, from the same area. And then we're going to go ahead and type back in Whiterun. Go down to the bottom and add in Crime Faction. So this is going to mean that if you do commit any crimes against him, he's going to report you to the Right Guard faction, and they're going to hopefully deal with you. Once you've added that in, the assigned crime faction down here, you can select that one there. So Crime Faction Whiterun, that will link him to the crime system. Now what I would do is, once I've done that, I would confirm and then reopen again, because this can be a real pain in the arse, and sometimes it knocks that off for no apparent reason. So welcome to the creation kit. And what we want to do now is go ahead and add a few more factions. So one I'm going to add is the Chopwood faction. So if you are going to be using the vanilla dialogue for all of this, then you can go ahead and add the Favor Jobs Chopwood faction. And what this will do is just give them the dialogue for... Oh, sorry, didn't want to do that. It'll give them the dialogue to allow you to sell firewood to them, and they'll give you money in return, and it'll all work perfectly just by adding that, and as long as you've got the right voice type and yada yada. So that's a really cool thing to add. Now what we want is just the general merchant faction. So it's going to let them sell items. And the next thing that we want in here is going to be the Inn Keeper faction. Now again, if you are using your own... sorry, not your own custom voice. If you're using the game's default voices, you're going to want this. So this is going to let them talk like an innkeeper. So they're going to be like, you know, chop some wood for the fire. Or they're going to be like, do you want a drink or whatever, instead of look at my wares. It's going to be more suitable for an innkeeper. So go ahead and add that. Now the next thing is the Rent Room faction. Now, if you're looking to have a custom system here where you change how much it costs, then you're not going to want this at all, because it's going to interfere. What this does is it adds the dialogue for the generic 10 gold costs. Now, if you're going to be following me throughout the rest of this tutorial and you want a custom cost for your rented room, for your inn, then do not add this in. But if you just want to stick with the generic cost of 10 gold, then go ahead and add this. But I'm not going to. So make sure you add that in if you are sticking with the vanilla. But I'm not sticking with the vanilla. I'm going to move on with this tutorial afterwards, and we're going to add some really cool stuff in. So I won't add that. The other thing you are definitely going to need is your own faction that you went ahead and created. So the Deer Faction Merchant Inn. You're going to want to add that one into there. And let me have a think. I think that should be pretty much it. That's all the factions that you're really going to need. So next up, we've got relationships. Obviously, this is just your own personal setup. Let's say he's got a wife. You're going to want to add his wife in there and such. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we don't actually need to mess with the relationships. Keywords, we don't need to really bother with. AI data, we've got unaggressive, aggressive, very aggressive, frenzied. Well, we don't really want him trying to chop our head off when we want to buy a room. So we're just going to keep him unaggressive. We'll give him a happy mood. He's going to be relatively brave. Energy is how much he's going to wander around. So if you want him quite an active innkeeper, then set this higher. So it's between 1 and 100. And if you want him to be pretty lazy and just stay behind his bar, then you can either set his package to do so, or just put this low. So let's have him fairly lazy at 20. So assistance, help friends and allies. So if somebody's getting stabbed, then he's going to go and help them. Or if you put nobody, then he's obviously just not going to care too much. And he's probably just going to cheer on whoever's doing the stabbing. So morality, no crime. That's probably what you're going to want for an innkeeper. Aggro radius, don't get set in that. The combat and the gift filter, you can leave that as default too, unless you want specific combat settings. So AI package, you can go ahead and you can create your own, or what I would recommend is just going ahead and adding an innkeeper one. So just type in inn, and oh my life, let me have a think. We'll try and find one a bit easier. Kinesgrove, we should have something to do with innkeeper in here. There we go. No, that's the wrong one. You're just going to want a package for an innkeeper. So I think I'll search for the Bannered Mare one. That might make things a bit easier. So we should have something for holder here. Oh, wow. You're going to want a package for an innkeeper, basically. I did find this earlier, and now I can't find it at all. There we go. Whiterun Innkeeper package. Right, what you want is something like this, just as a base, or you can go ahead. If you're experienced with AI packages, you can make your own, which is what I would have done anyway. But as you'll see, this one's pretty good. It's by default, it's got a location set up, it points to a marker, it's got the radius all set up, all the other flags and stuff, so you don't need to worry about it, but you can go in depth if you want. Now, what I'm going to do is go ahead, make my own version of this. So I'm going to go DF package, and I'm just going to call it Innkeeper. So I'm going to create new form, wipe out that one now, and alt click, add, and then search for the one I've just created. I'm going to go ahead and add that one in. So I've got that in there, and I'm going to edit it now. So to edit it, under package, sandbox, it's all fine. Go under location. This is all we really need to change. Click on here. And under near reference, I can select my marker. So the marker I told you to put in earlier. And because we've given it a reference, it's easy to see that we've got the right one selected. Because you do get other things like special effects and other junk that's in the way in the render window you can accidentally select. We'll keep the radius the same. And the only other thing, if you did want to get creative, again, if you've set them up for, say, 8 till 5 to work, then you're probably only going to want them doing this specific package at that time. So you can say from 8 and however many hours it's going to last. But for this tutorial, I'm going to leave it. So this is always going to be the thing that he's doing. And I'm going to go ahead, click OK. So the package is set up. It's nice and custom. All good to go. So under inventory, obviously default outfit, you can go ahead and put clothes tavern outfit on, the wench one, and it just changes that whether they're male or female, I do believe. So I'm going to leave that. Now sleep outfit, whenever I'm creating an NPC, I always recommend that you put a default sleep outfit on. Despite the fact the system is broken in vanilla, there are mods out there that fix this, and they're probably going to point toward their default sleep outfit as something to use. So if you've put none, then they're going to be walking around pretty much naked. So you want to make sure you always set a default sleep outfit, just in case other mods are able to make use of that. Now, in terms of inventory items, when it comes to selling items, there is a bug with this game that can actually be worked to your advantage in some cases. But in this case, whatever you add in here, if it's within the form list, the vendor list, whether you created your own or use the default for innkeepers, if you have things in here that are like food items, so food apple, there's a glitch where it takes things out of their own personal inventory and it adds them into the chest, or it just lets you access them so you can buy their own personal stuff. So just be careful what you're placing in here. If there's anything specific that you want them to own, you're probably better off sort of putting it in their own chest in their own room somewhere. So yeah, just be aware. As long as you're putting things in here that don't match the vendor item list, then they'll be able to keep hold of them. But yeah, you can have things in here. So for example, just a little off topic, if you were creating your own blacksmith and he had his own sword, he could end up selling his own personal sword. So just be aware of that. So for this, I'm not really going to add anything. Shouldn't need anything here. So I'm going to leave it. Now you get onto all the really good cool stuff. You get like spell list, sounds, animation, attack data, all that jazz. You can go ahead, change all this. You can revert back to or refer back even to my follower tutorials. I'll leave a link in the description to one of those where you can go ahead and set all this up. So before I go ahead and do all that, we have one other thing that we do need to do. We need to go ahead and under Papyrus scripts here, if you want, you can go ahead and just confirm that first. Reopen it, make sure everything's saved, everything's good. And under Papyrus scripts, you want to hit add. Now, I've got warnings turned off in my creation kit at the moment, so there's not going to be anything come up. But you might get a warning or two if you've got DLCs loaded. You can go ahead and just ignore them. So what you want to do, if you are using, again, if you're using the default system and you're happy with the 10 gold that they charge and you don't want to mess around or anything, and you added the rent room faction, then you want to add the rent room script. This is the default script used by the game. So then you want to go into this and you want to hit autofill all. It'll autofill the WI, the function script. You don't need to worry what that's all for. And the bed, this is where you're going to go ahead and hit edit value. So go back into your render window, keep that open a sec. Head to the bed. Just hide that light, excuse me. Hide that light, go to your bed, pick your reference in the render window, and double click on the bed that you want to rent out. And hit OK. There we go, because we give it a reference, again, we know we've selected the right thing. So that's how you would go ahead and do that. Now, what you need to do then, once you've actually got your NPC created and you've got a faction created for them, which we've already done, you can double click on the bed and go to ownership. And this is quite an essential thing to do. Either set the ownership to the innkeeper, or what I would probably recommend, in case you've got other people that are part of the inn, go ahead and set it to the faction. So DF faction merchant inn. This just makes sure that this is owned until you actually purchase it. What happens is when the script runs for purchasing, you end up having the ownership swapped out. So, and then it'll put it back. So that's what you do if you're going to be using vanilla. Now, at that point, you are absolutely done. So you can go ahead, you can save it, you're finished, you're complete, your inn should be working absolutely fine. You'll have a inn merchant working brilliantly. Perfect. Okay, so if you're still here, hopefully it's because you want to go ahead and create your own innkeeper system where you can actually customize the price that it costs to rent a room within your inn. So we can change it from 10 and have it to whatever we want without interrupting the vanilla system. Now this is going to work for whether you want to use vanilla dialogue or even if you want to voice act yourself, you're going to need 2 scripts. Now these 2 scripts are created by myself and they are a slight tweak from the default script. So these are pretty cool. You can go ahead and you can download these in the description down below. They are going to be available on my Google Drive and part of Project Modularity. And that's why there's PM at the start of them. So what you want to do, go ahead, copy these. Keep a version of them somewhere as they are, just in case you make a mistake. Go to your data folder. So this is under the Steam Library, Steam Apps, Common, Skyrim, if you've got the default setup. So you should know where your data folder is by now. So go into your data folder, go to scripts, go under source, and just paste a copy of these in here. Now just type in the first 2 letters so you can re-find them. And we've got PM script rent room and rent room queue. So what we want to do is go ahead and rename these. You're going to want to rename these to whatever you like. Just keep rent room in the name so it's nice and easy. So what I tend to do is just change the first 2 letters there. So I'm going to have it DF script for both of these, so that not everybody's going to be using the same script resource, are they? And then just type the first 2 letters again and refine them. Now we need to make a change to both of these and an additional change to that one. So I'm going to do Q first because it's quite easy. So I'm going to edit this in Notepad++. You can of course just use normal Notepad or any other external editor that you've got. So Notepad++ is pretty nice, pretty simple, easy to work with. And what you want to do is change the script name on the top here. So where it says PM script rent room queue, you want to match this up to the name of the file that you've just given it. So I just changed the PM to DF. So I'm going to do that there. I'm going to hit save. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the same for this one. So I'm going to change that top line to DF script rent room. Now the other change that we need to do is the reason that I am editing these outside the creation kit and not creating them in the creation kit is because this one relies on the other one and it gets quite picky with the order and tends to have problems compiling. So it's easy just to do the sources outside of the kit and then compile them with the manager inside, which we'll do shortly. Now before we do that, this one is actually pointing towards this script here. So what we need to do is just change this line here where it says function rent room, where it says again PM script rent room queue. You want to just change this to match your other script name. So I'll put DF. And that should work perfectly fine. Now it's going to link to that one. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. Just double check, make sure that's saved. Yes, it is. And what we're going to do now is go ahead and reload the creation kit and start making changes and set up our very own Inn Keeper setup. Okay, so first things first, now we've got the creation kit back loaded. I forgot to mention, you're actually going to obviously need to drag your actor into the render window. So I'm just going to dump Barney in there. Next up, we need to go ahead and compile those two new scripts that we've got. So I'm going to go under Gameplay and Papyrus Script Manager. And I've already got rent in the filter for some reason, which is quite handy actually. And you'll see that you've got df script rent room and df script rent room queue. So you basically have to filter out and just find your two new scripts. So what we're going to do is go ahead and compile the queue one first. And that's pretty important in terms of the order. So that should compile successfully. And then we're going to go ahead and compile the other one. And because that one's there and it relies upon it, that compiled successfully. So we're going to knock that off. Now what we need to do is go ahead and edit our actor, Barney Blue. And we want to go to this script. Now, what I said earlier was we added the rent room script because we want to use the vanilla system. But because we're now not going to be using the vanilla system, we're carrying on with our own custom one. We want to go ahead and remove that. And you want to click add. You might get an error or two if you've got the DLCs loaded. So I'm going to go ahead and type in rent again. And I'm going to find my rent room, not the queue one, just the normal one, rent room. I'm going to double click into here. And like I said, it's a adjusted version of the default one. So the vanilla one. And what you want to do is go ahead, autofill again, and do the same as you've done before. Point at the bed. So I'm not going to go into the specifics as to why you need your own scripts and stuff. It gets quite confusing, but just bear with me. So I've got our bed selected, and that's that change made. Next thing you need to do is go ahead and create your very own global. Now, first of all, I'm just going to type in a room to the filter under globals, and you'll see this is the global variable that is used to change the cost of the rooms. However, the problem is that all of the inns in the game, in the vanilla game, are set to use this global. So what you could do is you could change them all with the few types on the keyboard, and you could make them all cost 100 instead of 10. But of course, we want to make sure that this is going to be specific to our very own inn. So we're not going to use this global. We need to make our own. So we're going to, oh, well, what we might as well do actually, just make a copy of this one. So it's got the same setup. And what I'm going to do is this is going to cost 100 gold to stay in. And I'm going to create a custom ID. So DFG, and I'm going to call this rent cost. Now, it's important that you keep note of your script names that you made and keep note of this global variable name, because all this is going to be important that everything links together. You're going to have to follow this tutorial very, very carefully. Otherwise, the slightest mistake and things might not work. So go ahead, click OK, create a new form, and just refine it again and make sure that everything is set up correctly. So it's 100. Everything's fine. There we go. Nice and ready to rumble. Next thing that we need to do is go ahead and create ourselves a quest. So you want to go under character and quest, alt click and new. So this is going to be holding the dialogue options for your character. It's going to be separate from what the vanilla quest is that's used. The vanilla quest used is the dialogue generic or generic dialogue. There we go. That was right the first time. And if you go into here and you scroll down, what you'll see is the various options for renting a room, and it's placed alongside a few other generic dialogues. That's why it's obviously the dialogue generic. And when you go under scripts, you've got a script here, and this is actually part of the reason why we need our own scripts, because we don't want to link to this one. We want to make our own system. So we need separate dialogue and a separate script that links back to a different script for this. That's why we've got our own two custom scripts. It's not actually that confusing now I think about it. And we're going to have to do our own dialogues and such, so we don't want to do that. So we're going to make our very own here, and I'm going to give this an ID. So quest Inn Keeper. Doesn't really need a name, but I'll give it one anyway. Priority I'm just going to set to 30 as it seems to work. Run once, make sure that's unticked. Make sure you've got ticked, start game enabled, and we're good to get started. So before you do anything else, you want to go ahead and just confirm that. Then you want to refine and reopen that window. Now, the reason I did that is because there's a weird glitch with the creation kit that most people know about, where a lot of the options aren't available until you've confirmed that ID at least once. So it's a bit weird, but don't worry about it. Now, before I go any further, I'm just going to go under scripts and I'm going to go ahead and add my other script here. So click add. Again, you might get the odd error. And df underscore add my rent room queue. So I'm going to go ahead, fill in these properties. You can autofill. Unlike Bethesda's, I actually called it 001, so the gold autofills at least. Now, the rent global here, this is going to be your own global variable that you created. So, you know, I told you to keep note of it. Well, you still need to keep those notes because it's not just for this. So, DFG rent gold. And then the rent hours, if you just hover over, you'll actually get tooltips. Again, unlike the Bethesda versions. These tell you what things do, and this says that the default is set to 24 hours. So this is how long you're actually going to be renting the room for. So you can actually extend this to like a 2-day rental. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to keep it as the default as 24. It's just going to be easier for testing and such. Hell, you could put it as an hour, which would be quite expensive for quite a short time, but it's entirely up to you. So I'm going to keep that as that. Or, of course, you can go ahead, edit the value, and have it for 2 days if you want it. However many hours you wish. So I'm just going to have that reverted back. Confirm that. And now we want to go ahead and start creating dialogue views. So don't worry, this is fairly easy, simple enough to understand. Some of you out there, if you're going to be using your own custom voices and such, then you're good to go ahead and do that. I'm going to show you how to do some of that to some extent shortly. But first off, let's just go ahead, hit new, and make a new dialogue view. So like I say, a more experienced of you can go ahead and have some real fun with this and just use this tutorial for the actual custom system with the scripts and everything. You'll probably know where you're going roughly from here. But I would strongly recommend that you keep on watching anyway, because the conditions are pretty important that we need to set up. So what I'm going to do is df quest innkeeper, and I'm just going to put bb for Barney Blue and then dv for dialogue view, just to keep this unique. Now I'm going to click on it, and in this box here, alt click and create branch. So I'm just going to name this as well. It tends to put the start the quest name by default, so you do need to name this. And we're going to have branch, and I'm just going to call it 01. And then it'll automatically take whatever you just typed and put topic on the end. So I'm just going to accept that. That's perfectly fine. I do quite like that. And now we've got this system here. So what we need to do is just double click on this in the yellow bar part. So make sure you got that open. And we need to go ahead and add some topic text. So let me just refer back to my notes. What are we exactly going to have here? Let's copy and paste this in so I don't have to type it out. So I've got the generic, I'd like to rent a room. Then in brackets, you've usually got the amount of gold that it's going to cost. Now, instead of having to set this yourself, you can kind of set this up in a really fancy way. And you can do a little bit of code here where it's going to go global equals DFG rent cost. So, you know, I told you to keep note of your global variable. This is why you need to name that as your global variable. So don't keep it the same as mine. Name it the same as yours. So DFG rent cost gold, basically. So the gold is what it says after it. So it's this amount of gold. So that should be perfect. Now go ahead, click in that box. It's probably going to say, oh no, this isn't spelled correctly. So just hit cancel, ignore that crap. And then you want to alt click and new in this box here. And you want to go ahead and create a brand new response. So this response is going to be, let me copy and paste this as well. There we go, sure thing, it's yours for a day. Now, whether you're going to be using the vanilla dialogue or you're going to be using the in-game dialogue, it does not matter. We're going to be just recording our own voice here, and then we're going to be replacing it later on. So for now, though, don't worry about it. For now, all I'm going to do is go ahead, set an emotion type. I'm just going to have happy and 25, and then I'm just going to leave it there for a second. Now, once this box opens up, we can make sure we've got a few things sorted out. First of all, how's lip file? We're going to want that, so their mouths are going to end up moving. And then we need some conditions setting up. So first condition is usually what this would be with the default one is it would be getting the faction. So if you remember early on in the tutorial, I said that you want to add the rent room faction if you're using the vanilla system. Well, I told you to remove it so that it doesn't use the vanilla system, and this is where we're going to use our own. So instead of that condition, we're going to use get is ID, and this is either going to be specific for our own actor, or you can have it specific to a certain faction. So if you make your own generalized faction for innkeepers, you could do it that way and add this same dialogue to all of your innkeepers. So just to keep things simple here, I am going to keep it as run on subject, get his ID, and in here I am going to refer back to Barney Blue. So give that a few seconds, type in DF for Barney Blue there, DF actor Barney Blue, and OK. Equal to 1, so it's true. So get that it's Barney Blue. So only Barney Blue is going to end up with this dialogue, and not everybody in the game is going to be ending up being able to rent you a room. So next one is get actor value, and you want to change this. So this is going to be some magical variable. Now this took quite a while to actually figure out, and there are 10 variables in the game, and for some reason Bethesda don't tell you what the hell they are. They don't tell you what they are or what they do. But I think pretty much what this variable does is it's kind of an on-off switch for whether you're currently renting a room. So don't worry about it too much. I've kind of tested everything. It seems to work perfectly fine. Variable 9 is linked with the Inn Keeper system, and that's it. It knows whether you've rented a room or not. It's kind of a magical variable. So we want to have that as variable. And you want to have this checked this time around as 0, so equal to 0. So that's currently set to 0, which it is by default, meaning that you haven't rented a room yet. So we want to keep that as that. Now the next thing that we need is getting an item count. So get item count. And this is where we're going to be checking if you've got enough gold. So I want to type in gold 001 there. It's auto-filled. And you want to see if you've got equal to or more than. And we're going to use our global, so we don't have to add this in manually. So as you tick use global, we also want to set this to run on target. So as you tick use global, you'll see that you've got a box appear here. Nice drop down menu. So just type in your global again. So DFG rent cost again, whatever your global is, and confirm that. So we've got 3 nice conditions there to make sure that this dialog only shows at a certain point. Now the next thing we need to do is create another script. Now don't worry, this is dead simple and it just needs some tweaking to your own system. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this again from my notes, and I'm going to put a papyrus fragment in. So this papyrus fragment, it is dead simple. It is simply in brackets. You don't need to worry about this. I'll have this in the description down below so you can just quickly copy and paste it in. You'll want AK speaker as. Now where it says as, it's got DF script rent room. Now if you haven't guessed it already, this is where you need to rename this to whatever your script was. So it's not going to be DF script rent room for you. It's whatever you've changed yours to. So you're going to want the name of your first script in there, and then it's got .rent room get owning quest as, and then you guessed it, it's got the next script name there, and you have to replace that with your other script in there. So actually, that says G. It's meant to say Q. That's interesting. That was wrong somewhat. So we've got a Q version for that. In fact, was it Q? Let's make sure it wasn't G. Yeah, it was Q. Okay, I don't know why I did that. But anyway, there you go. Even the teacher makes mistakes sometimes. So AK speaker as DF, that script, rent room, get owning quest, and rent room Q. So make sure it's all named correctly just to match up with your own stuff. Now, what I like to do is just go ahead and compile this. Hopefully, you'll wait a few seconds, and if nothing's cropped up saying that you're useless and you failed, then it's all good. It's compiled lovely, and it should do. Now, what I like to do so that I know what the hell this script's going to be, I like to go to Advanced and rename the script and put it similar to along the other ones. So I'm going to call this DF script rent frag. Give that a few seconds. And I've completely messed the name up. I've put an F in there. Never mind, it doesn't matter. We're going to just compile that, recompile it. Should be quite happy. And you can even go in, look at the source. Oh, that's been a bit freaky. Sometimes it does this. So I'm just going to confirm that first of all. I'm just going to go back in. There we go. It has done it. Sometimes it doesn't update, so don't worry about it. It should be fine. It should compile. But if you have any trouble, then just check this out. Make sure it's all good. So there we go. We've got that in there. We've got a nice little papyrus fragment. And we're good to continue on. So I'm going to go ahead, click OK on there. Just get all this confirmed. I'm just going to save. You never know when the hell the creation kit's going to crash these days. So now I'm going to go back in and make sure that everything's updated nicely. So if you go back to your response text here, this is where we're going to want to record a short bit of dialogue. Now, the reason why I didn't do this before is because it didn't know what voice type we're using and all sorts. Now, if you're going to be using your own custom voice type, you'll want to go ahead and just create your own voice type. Dead simple. Give it a name. And then you want to set that to your actor instead of the in one. but that means that you're going to have to do all of your own custom dialogue for things. So I'm going to leave that down to people who know what they're doing with that. I'm not going to go through all of that today. So what we need to do here, again, whether we're using vanilla dialogue or not, we need to record a line just so we know what this is. And then afterwards, I'm going to show you how to just swap it out for the vanilla line that you actually want to use. So what you want to do is make sure you've obviously got a microphone at the ready. Hell, I don't think you even need a microphone. I'm not sure if it will moan if you don't have one though. So what you want to do is just go to configure, and you should have a microphone selected in here. In fact, I need to make sure this uses my Yeti. So I'm going to make sure it uses my Blue Yeti. Keep it at whatever default setting it does. And I want to click on here. And I want to go ahead and just record this line. I mean, I could say bobbity boop if I wanted. I can say whatever I want in here. It's going to get replaced. This is just to purely create the sound file. So I'm going to go ahead and record this. Sure thing. It's yours for a day. So I've got that there. And what I'm going to do, go ahead. I can hit preview if I want. I'm not going to bother because I'm not actually recording the system sound right now. I'm going to go ahead and save it, but you can preview it if you like, and you should be able to hear it back. So it's saved that. And I'm just going to leave it there for now. I'm not going to bother with the lip file just yet. Not until I've swapped it out. And I'm going to confirm that. So what we need to do, if you haven't figured it already, we need to go ahead and we need to add some other responses. So we need to go into here and we need to have a response for if you haven't actually got enough gold. So the way we're going to do that, first off, I'm going to put the response for if you don't have the gold. And then I'm actually going to add a response, which is for if you are already renting the room, because you know when they joke at you like, are you joking? I've just rented you a room. Why are you asking again? So we get to do some really cool stuff here. So the response text for this, so let's have a look. This is quite the fun line if you don't have enough gold. So what does this look like? The Temple of Mara, no gold, no bed. So there we go. This one can have a sort of disgust look at 50. So you can change the emotions, have some fun with this. So you can even have idle animations if they're pointing at you and stuff like that. You can get really creative. So we're going to select that. Again, I'm just going to leave that there. I'm not actually going to record any dialogue just yet because we haven't got the other settings set up. And I'm going to have haslip file once again. I'm going to do get is ID once more. And I'm just going to go through the same sort of thing. So I'm going to type in DF for Barney Blue. There we go. Same setup there. And now I'm going to go ahead, get active value, and check this as my variable 9. And instead of 0, it's going to be 1 this time. So make sure that's set to 1. And then we have the get item count, and it's going to be a little different this time. So again, we're going to see if the player's got enough gold, and this time it's going to be has the player got less gold than use global, and point to your global again. So if they've got less than the actual rent cost, then this isn't going to go well. Make sure that's set to target, and we're good to go. So there we go. We got that in there. We don't need any papyrus fragment. The papyrus fragment was simply for the rental of the room. These two are just other options for when you're asking things and you already have the room or you don't have the gold. So we don't need to worry about that stuff now. So we can select that. Now we want to go ahead and make the final one. And I'll go back and do the quick record in a moment. So I'm just going to add these in first. So I'm going to do the other line for if you ask and you've already rented it. So actually, I think I've just made a mistake. I'll correct that in a moment. So I'm just going to have that in there. Hit OK on that. I'm just going to leave that for a second. I'm just going to go back in. I just realized I completely set this wrong. Let me just check this. It's very easy to make a mistake. That needs to be 0 again. My apologies. So it's 0 on both of those two. So this one is the one where it's going to have to be 1. So first of all, get is ID. Again, it's going to be DF, Barney Blue, or whatever yours is. And then it's going to be get active value. Whoops. Get active value. Once again, it's going to be this fancy variable 9. And this time it's going to be 0. This is the one that it's set to 0 on when they are basically saying, are you joking? Because it means you're already renting it. Actually, no, it's going to be 1. Oh, my life. Really? It's crazy. Okay, it's going to be 1. Them two are going to be set to 0. Sorry about that. Jeez. Okay, we'll get there in the end. And again, we don't need any papyrus fragment or anything like that. So I'm just going to confirm that. Now I'm going to go in. I'm going to get these two files created by recording some quick lines. So I'm going to do exactly the same again. Make sure this is still configured the same. Would you believe it's not? Creation kit, what are you doing to me? There we go. So we're going to go ahead and record. What does this look like? The Temple of Mara? No gold, no bed. There we go. And I know I'm brilliant at voice acting. So we're going to go ahead and confirm that. And I'm going to record the same for this one. Are you joking? You just rented a room from me. There we go. Kind of a shame, actually. We're not even going to go in game and hear this. But there you go. So make sure that's all saved. All good to go. I'm going to go ahead and just save at this point. Okay, so one thing that we need to do before we go in game and just check that things are working as they are, we need to go ahead and use XEdit. Now, if you don't know what this program is, you don't have it and you need to go and grab it, then it's going to be in the description down below. It is a program that allows you to pretty much tidy up your mods, make changes, and do a ton of other cool stuff. And we're just going to need this today to go ahead and create an SEQ file. So once you've gone ahead and installed it, you can head to the Nexus page, go ahead and install it. It's pretty much all there. It's simple enough to do. And it should be pointing at your data folder. Once it is loaded up, select your ESP here. If it's got a bunch of other stuff selected, just alt-click and select none, and then just select your ESP. Get that loaded up. Should take mere seconds, but it really depends on your mod. If it's a massive mod, it might take a bit longer, so just be patient. You'll know when it's done because it'll say background loader finished. Now you just need to select your ESP here, alt-click, other, and create SEQ file. Now you should see that it's successfully created one. Can't speak today. And what you want to do, go along to your data folder, and you should see that if you didn't have one already, there'll be an SEQ folder. Double click in there, and we should see we've got df test in SEQ, or the name of whatever your ESP is. Now the reason we need to generate an SEQ file is Bethesda made an update, one of the later updates to the game, where you have to generate one of those to get quests to fire off. So if you're editing quests or creating your own quest or anything to do with dialogue, you tend to need to create your own SEQ file. And do make sure that you package this up with your mod if you're looking to share it with the community when you create a BSA, or even if you send it out loose. Make sure that your SEQ is going to be included. Otherwise, other people are going to have an issue where they'd have to save and then reload for dialogue to pop up and for quests to fire off. So just be aware of that. So I thought, sod it, we'll go in game and we'll see how things test, even with my sort of replacement voice right now with the Innkeeper. It's going to be a bit weird, but I'll just show you that things work, and then I'll show you how to go ahead and replace those files so that you'll be able to use the vanilla dialogue system. Okay, so here we are in game, and if we just walk up, we'll see we've got Barney Blue.
Get an axe and bring me all the wood you can chop.
He's already mentioned the wood chopping, so that's pretty good. That's working. If we go on, I have firewood to sell. As long as you're using the vanilla system, that'll work perfectly fine with just the faction. We've got heard any rumours lately. This is actually part of the Innkeeper faction. So if you were going to have completely custom dialogue, you may want to get rid of that faction as well and voice everything yourself. So just be aware of that. Otherwise, you might end up with a vanilla voice there. So we've got, I'd like to rent a room. The only thing that doesn't seem to want to work here sometimes is that little bit of code where it can automatically grab the variable. So I may have accidentally cocked up there somewhere, or you can just go ahead and enter that manually. So just experiment, you'll get that right. So we can rent a room. What I've done is I've removed all of my gold near enough so that I don't have enough so it can hear the dialogue. What does this look like? The Temple of Mara? No gold, no bed. There you go. So no gold, no bed. And I'm just going to sort of come off there. Add item F. Give yourself 300 gold.
Need something?
Oh, he was just wandering off to go and do some sweeping, I think. I interrupted him. So if we ask again, sure thing. It's yours for a day. So sure thing, it's yours for a day. Fantastic.
I'll show you to your room.
100 gold removed. And as long as your nav mesh is all sorted, everything's good with your custom in, you should be able to navigate to the bed using
Let me know if there's anything else
vanilla system. And then it just uses our own little custom system to manage the gold. God, he was in a hurry, wasn't he? So that's good. Now you can see the bed is unowned, and if we actually wait around for the time, this is a good glitch to do, by the way. If you TFC out, it'll force time to glitch away quicker, so you don't have to stand there waiting for it. There we go. So if we look at the bed after the 24 hours, the time period, it's now owned. We'll have to hire it. So
need something?
Again. Sure thing. It's yours for a day. Brilliant. So
I'll show you to your room.
So I'll let him show me to my room, and then I'm going to ask again if I can hire it when I've already done it, and we should get the other dialogue if everything's set up correctly and we didn't make any mistakes in the end.
Let me know if there's anything else you need.
Okay, so I'm just going to check firewood.
Honest gold for honest work.
So I've got 10 on me. So it's removed 10, and it's added the right amount of gold. And now we've got, I'd like to rent a room. So, are you joking? You just rented a room from me. There we go. So all our dialogue is working perfectly fine. It's all good. We can rent the room and all sorts. One extra thing that I was thinking of doing is having a door on here. That you could lock the door and unlock the door. Now the system did work, but unfortunately what happens is it will lock the door even if you're still in the room. So I decided to take that out. But you can do some pretty cool stuff. You can kind of tweak the script if you've got an experience yourself and do other things when it starts and stops. In fact, you could probably change ownership of the container or transfer items back out that you've been storing in it. So you could do some really, really cool stuff.
Good morning.
There we go. Heard any rumours lately? Got all sorts. So now what I'm going to do, I am going to go back outside the game. We are going to head back to the creation kit, and we are actually going to go ahead and extract all the vanilla dialogue that we're going to need to replace my voice, so it all fits in quite nicely. Okay, so for the next part of this video, and yes, this is very long, I did warn you, we are going to need a few tools. So first of all, you're going to need a program that can extract the BSAs of Skyrim. So I personally use BSA Opt. It's a fantastic program. I think it's the best one for the job. A lot of people use this. In fact, you might already have it, in which case, fantastic. Don't worry if you don't know how to use it. I'm going to show you roughly how to use it anyway. And I also have that BSA extraction video that you can go ahead and check out. That'll be in the description down below. That'll show you how to unpack and repack things. So don't worry about that. We're going to need that to get to the BSAs. Next up, we have the Unfuzzer. This is brilliant for unfuzzing all of the files. If you don't know, they like to pack their files up, their lip files and WAV files, sound files basically, up into a single format Bethesda do, and we need to access those because we want to get to some of the vanilla dialogue and reuse it. And you don't want to be sort of trying to use what's already there. It just causes problems, so we're going to need this basically. The next thing we need to know exactly what the file names of the lines that we need are, so we can actually search for the lines we need instead of going through a ridiculous amount of files. We can use this tool to quickly search and know what the file names are and drag them out once we've extracted them and unfuzz them. So that's the voice file reference tool. So we're going to need all three of those tools. Now what I tend to like to do is go ahead, go to my Skyrim directory. I have created a folder called Tools, and in here I have a number of different tools I like to use in my modding, very useful ones. I've got XEdit, as you can see. I've even got NifScope, one I can't pronounce, and I've got my Unfuzzer there and my voice reference. Now my BSA Opt is somewhere. It's somewhere around here. I actually have everything already unpacked in a specific folder for BSA Opt. Here's BSA Opt. So I don't keep that in Tools, but you can put that wherever. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead, go to my tools. I'm going to keep that open there, just off to the side. And I've already gone ahead and unpacked stuff, but I've got BSA Opt on my toolbar here. So what you would do is you would load this up, give that a few seconds, because this can be an absolute pain to load. And what you want to do, you just want to navigate to your BSA. So in this case, it's just sort of normal Skyrim vanilla. So we're just going to navigate to the Skyrim BSA as soon as this loads up, and what you would do is you would go ahead and unpack them to a folder of your choice. So you can do what I've done and unpack them where I've selected, or you can go ahead and just have the default location, which is wherever you've installed it, in what it calls its out folder. So this should load very shortly, so let's just wait on that. There we go. That's nice and quick actually. So what you want to do, go ahead, browse, and you want to navigate. I've got shortcuts on my desktop, as you've noticed. You want to navigate to your data folder, and you want to go ahead and you want to select the Voices BSA. There we go, Skyrim Voices BSA. So you want to use that folder, let it go through all the stuff. You'll see what it's doing. It's progress down here. It goes through all of these files and such. Gets them all ready. And then you'll see you've actually got a button down here, unpack, and you'll see that there's the default, which is its out folder. So if you're new to using this program, I would just go ahead and use that. So unpack them there. So you'll see sound there. You've got sound. The voices will be here somewhere lit up, everything that's actually in here. Can't see it for now, but it will be there. There we go. There's voice, Skyrim ESM, and there's all the voices that you're going to need. So you can select individual ones that you want to go ahead and extract. But like I say, I've already got these extracted, so I'm just going to go ahead and navigate to those now. So what I need to do, I need to unfuzz them. So once you've got them all unpacked, you want to launch the unfuzzer, and you want to click here, and you can select the place where you've got them all unpacked. So I'm going to need to navigate to where I have unpacked my stuff. So I told you I'd put mine in this folder here. Bits out, sound, voice. Now if I go under voice, it should be just the normal Skyrim ESM, and I actually need to find the voice type that I'm using. So in my case, it was male, common, accented. So I'm going to go ahead, select that directory, and I'm going to unfuzz it. So I'll hit unfuzz. Now it'll grab everything that is in that folder, all the files in that folder, all of the fuzz files, and it is going to sort of unfuzz them. So if I just go ahead and ahead of time navigate there, if I can find it. Ugh, so many files and folders. So BSA out, and let's make our way there while it's doing its thing. Voice, Skyrim ESM. And if I just look at one of these, you'll see they're all packed into fuzz files, and we can't get to them like that. So we need to unfuzz them. So if I go to where this is doing its work, I'll go to male, common, accented. I know this is all confusing and crazy, but if you just follow the tutorial, you should be good. It's not so bad. Might take a few rewatches for some sections. But as you can see, what it's doing, it's grabbing these fuzz, and it's giving us a lip and an XWM file. So this is almost finished. Now, the reason that we needed that other tool is obviously I do not want to go through every single one of these files and trying to find the lines that I need to replace my own voice with. So I'm going to go by type, and I'm going to scroll down so I've got a rough idea. So yeah, I could go through, I could listen to all of these out of context and have a damn good laugh and try and find the dialogue lines I need. But that is just a complete waste of my time. So now this is where our third tool comes in. So I need to try and navigate back there. So if I go to my tools, I go to the voice reference one, I load this up. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to go ahead and grab those lines of dialogue that I needed. So what were they? So let's have a think. It was sure thing. And what I want to do, I want to select the voice type just to narrow it down. So accented. There it is, sure thing, it's yours for the day. Now we know the exact file name. So we can copy the file name to our clipboard, and then we can put it in the search. Wrong search. Dearie me, I am cocking so much up. Wrong search box, right, knock that off. Where are we? Absolutely confused today. There we go, so we knock that in our search, and it should find it. Now at the minute it seems to be fuzzed up, it's just finishing that off. Hopefully it's going to find that. That's because we've actually got fuzz on the end. Make sure we just look for the name. There we go. We've got the WAV file. So what you want to do, you want to go ahead, copy, and just paste this to the desktop. Right, so keep that on the desktop. Now we need to find the next one. We've got 3 of these to find. So we've got sure thing, and we've got one that references Mara, haven't we? So we have, what does this look like? Temple of Mara, no gold, no coin. Copy that to clipboard. Do the same again. Paste it into there. Just get rid of the file extension. And I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste that to my desktop as well. You'll have to excuse notifications. I'm sick and tired of my damn Google going crazy. There we go. The next one that we need. We are looking for... Oh, what was the other one? Think. Brain is dying here. We have... you just rented a room from me, yes? So we'll look for you just... Are you joking? You just rented a room. Copy clipboard. So all we're doing is just finding all the files that we need. And then we're going to use them. So we're going to copy this as well. And we're going to paste that to our desktop. And we are done searching. We have all the files we need. We can close all of that now. And we can just start using these. So I'm just going to play these.
Sure thing. It's yours for a day.
Okay. My headset's off, so I don't know which one I'm doing. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go and navigate to sound. So I'm going under my data folder and sound, and if you go to voice, if everything's working correctly, if you manage to record those snippets, you can go under the name of your ESP. It will have made a folder. So if we go in here, you'll see it's named it male commoner accented because that's the voice it was using. And what we've got here are WAV and lip files. I'm surprised actually it's actually generated one. I'm not sure if it has or not, but we'll regenerate those anyway because it's now not going to match with these files. So what we'll do is we want these names here. So first of all, what's this one? Sure thing, it's yours for a day. Sure thing, it's yours for the day. So we need to know which one of these is sure thing, it's yours for the day.
Sure thing. It's yours for a day.
There we go. So we want sure thing, it's yours for the day. So we want to copy the name of the one in here and we want to change it onto that one. So just make sure that's correct. What's this one?
Are you joking?
That one's Are You Joking? What does this look like? Right, no, it's that one, isn't it? Are you joking? So, Are You Joking? I'm going to copy the name of that one and I'm going to replace it on there. So you can see what we're doing here. So I'm going to apply this. What does this look? What does this look like? That's the Mara line. And that's the only remaining one. So now I have the actual vanilla dialogue and I've replaced the name. And all I'm going to do is select these, copy them, paste and overwrite my own recording. And now we have the vanilla dialogue in there, our own custom system, and everything's set up good. Okay, so the next step, we need to redo our lip files. So what we're going to do is go under our character and quest when we've loaded back up the creation kit. Go to your quest here, go back through, and for each of your dialogue, you are going to just check that it's the right sound.
Sure thing. It's yours for a day.
So that's right, I'm going to select that there from WAV, generate lip file. Just give that a few seconds and okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for each of these. Just make sure.
What does this look like? The Temple of Mara? No gold, no bed.
There we go. So from WAV, generate, a few seconds, and then the last one.
Are you joking? You just rented a room from me.
There we go. So from WAV, generate. And that's going to make sure that the lips sync up perfectly. There we go. So save that. Now, the other thing to take note of is that when you go ahead and package up your mod, you are going to need to re-fuzz those files. So if you go into Tools, if this is where you've stored it, of course, go back and reopen your unfuzzer, load it up, navigate to your own newly created files. So I'm going to try and get to where I need to. So it's going to be under Skyrim, Data, Sound, Voice, My Mod, Male Commoner. I'm going to select that and I'm going to refuzz. So that shouldn't take too long, not many files in there. And if we just go back through to Data, through to Sound, through to Voice, through to In, through to Accented, you'll see it's fuzzed them up. And that will allow that to work when packed into a BSA. If you don't do that and you upload the files sort of loose with the lip and the WAV, it is not going to work when you pack it up into BSA and send it off to other people. So you want to make sure you go ahead and do that. So the last part of this video is just to show those of you that have decided to use your own custom voice for your innkeeper how to set up your own dialogue option for selling your firewood. Now, if you're going to use the vanilla voices, then that is it. Everything I've showed you should get you there. You're completely done. You've got your own custom system, your own price. You can change the hours, and you've also got your vanilla voice good and set to go. And it's just a matter of adding any other factions or dialogue that you wish to. So for those that do want to use custom dialogue, I'm not going to go through all of the system of how to set custom dialogue up. There are plenty of tutorials for that. I actually have one at the time of this video covering sort of basic dialogue setup as well that you can go ahead and check out. But I'm not going to cover that. I'm simply going to cover how to add the option for firewood if you do know what you're doing with custom dialogue. So to do this, you want to go ahead and make your way back to your quest. I keep putting PM for project modularity. So DF quest innkeeper, go back to here. I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new branch called firewood. And same for the topic. And I'm just going to drag that there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put I have firewood to sell. Give that a few seconds. Click into here. Great. Hand it over. Place whatever you want in here. This is going to be your own custom dialogue anyway. So emotion type, happy, 50. And just confirm that for now. So we've got has lip file. That's absolutely fine. We can also tick goodbye if we want the conversation to be over after this is done, but I'm just going to leave that for now. Sometimes it can get picky if there's certain scripts running. So we obviously want to do the usual. So get is ID, and we can put df Barney Blue. There you go. So select Barney Blue, and that's that's that. New. So we want to get item count. So we want to make sure that this option only appears if you have firewood. So object firewood, get that you have at least 1 firewood. So it's going to be more than or equal to 1 firewood. Otherwise the option doesn't show, which is perfectly fine. And then we're going to need some papyrus fragment in here. So if I just refer back to my notes, what you want to do first, you just want to go ahead and put AK speaker in here. Just anything really. And compile it. Give it a few seconds, should be absolutely fine. Then go to advanced and rename this script. I'm going to call it df script firewood cell. Haven't made any spelling errors this time. Give that a few seconds. And what I'm going to do, I am going to then edit the properties. So I'm going to go into properties. I'm going to start adding properties. So the first property you're obviously going to want is some gold. We'll go with that first. Whoops. Gold 001. A few seconds. And these should autofill. So it's all good. The next one that you want is going to be the firewood itself. So another misc object. Firewood 01. Should autofill as well. Add property. We're going to need 2 integers. So we've got the first integer there. This is going to be player firewood count. Now don't worry, you don't need to worry about the entire script here. So player firewood count, that's perfectly fine. And add another property. In fact, you can set that to hidden. So I might do that afterwards. So maybe just set these as hidden. You don't need to worry about them. So player gold reward. So that you won't actually see, but that should have been hidden. Not sure if I can actually change that now. So I'm just going to confirm that. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and place in my fragment. So let's copy this from my notepad and compile. Now you can see there's no errors. It should be absolutely fine. What I'm just going to do is confirm that. I'm just going to fix the one error that I kind of made. I'm going to go back in. I'm going to edit the source. And I'm going to set hidden to that one as well. Because those integers don't need actually changing. Just going to save that. Compile that. I'm just going to go back in and make sure that's correct. Should be. Yep, there we go. It's all good. And what that'll do is whenever you speak about this dialog option, it will get the amount of firewood you have, it will remove it from you, and then give you the correct amount of gold. Now, of course, as you can see here, you've got the number 7. You can change that out if you want. It's basically how much gold per firewood you're going to be getting, what it's going to times it by, so it makes sure you get the right amount of gold, and that is that. Absolutely fine. So that's going to be down in the description below. It's either going to be as a source script file, a notepad, or just loose. I haven't decided just yet, but it's all going to be down there in the description, all the fragments that you need and the scripts that you need. So that's how you set your firewood system up. So like I say, obviously you've got a lot more to consider if you're going to be doing custom dialogue for your innkeeper. You have to do all the misc dialogue. You'll have to replace the sort of usual dialogue added by factions that's in the dialogue generic and other such quest lines. You'll have to do all that yourself, but I'm going to leave that to more experienced modders. This is just how to add the firewood option on. So in terms of Innkeeper, that is absolutely everything added in, which is fantastic. So that is it. You should now have a fully working Innkeeper. I'm sorry if this tutorial was ridiculously long, so you're quite happy. Well, feel free to be happy to end the video right here. But what I'm going to do is I am just finally going to hop in game and we're going to see the system complete and fully working. Okay, so here we are in game once more and we'll go up to Barney Blue. And apart from his odd grey face, it all should be pretty good here. So I'd like a room to rent. I went ahead and fixed the 100 gold issue.
Sure thing. It's yours for a day.
As you can see, we've got the actual dialogue for him there.
I'll show you to your room.
He'll go ahead.
Right this way.
Show me to my room. And he's got stuck on the nav mesh. Come on. Come on, Barney. There we go. He'll show me to my room. And then, of course, I can go ahead and get the other dialogue.
Yes? Are you joking? You just rented a room for me.
So, nice bit of confusion.
Until next time.
And then if we wait around for those 24 hours...
But, know if there's anything else you need.
And then, we shouldn't have enough gold this time.
What does this look like? The Temple of Mara? No gold, no bed.
It's a bit harsh.
Until next time.
And just to show that this should not break the vanilla system, I'm going to go to Whiterun Bannered Mare real quick.
Come on in. We've got warm food, warm drinks, and warm... If it's work you need, sure thing. It's yours for a day.
10 gold.
I'll show you to your room.
And she'll
right
show me
this
to
way.
my room. So, that's the normal one. Good grief. It's all the racket. So, yep, she'll show me to my room. That works absolutely fine. So, you've got a system that borrows from the vanilla, but also has different settings.
Let me know if there's
for
anything
itself.
else you need.
Perfect. And that is it for another Skyrim Creation Kit tutorial video, so I hope you found it useful. Please let me know in the comments section below. You can, of course, go ahead and check out the rest of my work over on my website at www.darkfox127.co.uk, and feel free to come along and join the Discord, where we have well over 100 members, where you can come along and share your mods, help out with mods, get help with mods, and all sorts of other good stuff. So that is it. Hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll speak to you next time.